Rimworld is often described as a colony survival game, but if you've played it long enough, you know that's not really true. Every colony starts the same way. A few desperate people, limited supplies, and a simple goal: stay alive. And at first, everything feels reasonable. You mine a little more steel, you store a little more food, you push your colonists a bit harder because you need to. And that's where it begins, not with raids, not with disease, not with Randy. Most colonies don't fall because of bad luck. They fall because of choices. You expand too fast. You hoard wealth you don't need. You overwork pawns until they snap. You justify every decision with one thought: just this once. Rimworld doesn't judge you for these decisions. It simply remembers them. Every mechanic in the game quietly reacts to your behavior. Wealth scaling, mood systems, expectations, raids, diseases, social fights. The game doesn't punish you immediately. It waits until all your mistakes align. And when they do, the collapse feels sudden. But it never was. In this video, we're going to look at Rimworld through a different lens. Not as a survival game, but as a story about the 7 deadly sins. Greed in Rimworld doesn't look like gold statues and vaults full of silver. It looks like one more order in the work tab. You mine the entire mountain even though half the steel will never be used. You don't sell surplus weapons, you store them just in case. Masterwork furniture replaces perfectly fine, normal quality beds because the material is already there. Every one of these decisions increases colony wealth. And wealth is not cosmetic. As your numbers climb, raids change. Enemies stop arriving with clubs and bows and start carrying assault rifles, doomsday launchers, and power armor. Drop pods stop landing at the edge of the map and start landing inside your hospital. Sieges last longer. Breachers target your walls on purpose. The colony feels stronger, but the margin for error disappears. A single unlucky mortar shell now matters. A single missed shot can mean a dead doctor. A single breached wall can cascade into a full collapse because the raid wasn't scaled for survival. It was scaled for greed. The cruel part is that Rimworld never tells you you've crossed the line. There's no warning, no pop-up, no red number. Your stockpiles look impressive. Your kill box still works. Everything feels under control until the storyteller rolls the next raid. And suddenly you realize the truth. You didn't build a stronger colony. You built a richer one. And Rimworld always collects its debt with interest. Gluttony in Rimworld isn't about starving. It's about having too much and still wanting more. Your freezers are full, but you keep planting rice. You slaughter animals you don't need because meat is efficient. You cook lavish meals for everyone, even when simple meals would be enough. Beer, ambrosia, smoke leaf, not as emergency tools, but as daily routines. Food stops being survival. It becomes mood management. Colonists expect variety. Fine meals become the baseline. When supplies dip, the penalty feels worse than hunger ever did. A solar flare hits, freezers fail, and suddenly, thousands of nutrition points rot in a single day. Gluttony also hides inside drugs. Ambrosia every 2 days because it's safe. Beer after every shift to keep mood stable. Tolerance builds quietly. Addiction risk climbs invisibly. One mental break turns into another because the colony depends on chemicals instead of systems. Work slows. High on smoke leaf, your best crafter takes longer to finish armor. Your doctor walks slower to the hospital. Your soldiers eat better than they fight. Then the supply chain breaks. A toxic fallout kills crops, a raid burns the fields, a blight hits during a cold snap. Suddenly the colony isn't starving, it's withdrawing. Colonists aren't angry because they lack food. They're angry because they lost comfort. And that's the core of Gluttony in Rimworld. Sloth in Rimworld isn't about doing nothing. It's about letting the game play itself. You set up work priorities once and never touch them again. Colonists haul stone chunks while bleeding pawns wait in the hospital. Critical repairs sit unfinished because someone is cleaning on priority 2. Everything still runs, just badly. Sloth shows up in over-automation. You stop checking details. A pawn has been walking with a bad back for years. Another has a minor infection that never quite gets treated properly. Construction skill is low, but walls are still built until they collapse during a breach. Sloth is trusting systems that worked yesterday. You stop micromanaging combat. Draft everyone, send them to the same positions. It worked last time, so it should work again. Then a new threat arrives. Mechanoids ignore cover. Breachers avoid your kill box. A drop pod lands inside the freezer, and no one responds quickly because priorities weren't adjusted. Nothing fails instantly. That's why Sloth is dangerous. The colony degrades slowly. Response times lengthen. Small problems stack, And when the crisis finally hits, you don't lose because you lacked resources. You lose because no one was paying attention. Wrath in Rimworld doesn't start as rage. It starts as retaliation. A raid kills a favorite pawn. A bonded animal dies. A mortar shell lands in the nursery. You don't retreat. You don't stabilize. You counterattack. Prisoners stop being resources. They become targets. You skip recruitment and go straight to punishment. Organs are harvested not because the colony needs them, but because it feels justified. Mood penalties are ignored. They deserved it. Wrath escalates conflict. You raid nearby factions instead of trading with them. Goodwill drops. Allies disappear. Future raids arrive larger, better equipped, and more frequent. The map becomes hostile. Caravans are ambushed. Visitors refuse to come. Quest rewards vanish because no one trusts you anymore. Inside the colony, wrath doesn't stay external. Colonists with low moods start social fights. Bloodlusted pawns escalate injuries instead of ending them. Wrath also corrupts decision-making. You fight battles you don't need to fight. You chase fleeing raiders into fog of war. You refuse to abandon a position because retreat feels like losing. And Rimworld punishes this relentlessly. Not with one big disaster, but with attrition. More raids, more injuries, more permanent scars. Wrath doesn't destroy the colony in a single moment. It locks you into a cycle where every problem is solved with violence, until violence is all you have left. And by then, the storyteller doesn't need to be cruel. You've already done the work for them. Before we continue, just a quick reminder. These videos are a lot of work for me, and if you're already watching them and you like my content, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can cancel anytime. Pride in Rimworld is believing you've solved the game. Your kill box works. Your defenses are symmetrical, efficient, and tested. Raids die exactly where you planned them to die, so you stop changing anything. Walls stay the same even as enemies get smarter. Turrets are placed where they've always been. You ignore breach raids because the last one failed. Pride turns adaptation into stubbornness. You draft colonists into the open because they can take it. You don't build fallback positions because retreat feels unnecessary. Then the storyteller changes the rules. Mechanoids ignore suppression. Breacher AI targets weak points you forgot existed. Drop pods land past your defenses, not through them. And pride delays your reaction. You assume it's under control. You wait too long to reposition. You underestimate the damage because past raids looked worse. Inside the colony, pride shows up differently. You keep difficult pawns because you can handle it. You ignore stacking mood debuffs because no one has broken yet. You delay medical upgrades because your doctor has always pulled through. Then something minor goes wrong. A single unlucky shot downs your best shooter. A fire spreads because no one was assigned to firefighting properly. A mental break hits at the worst possible moment. Pride doesn't kill colonies by making them weak. It kills them by making them inflexible. The colony stops learning, stops adjusting, stops questioning whether yesterday's solution still works today. And when Rimworld finally proves you wrong, it doesn't feel fair because pride convinced you it couldn't happen. Envy in Rimworld lives inside the social tab. One pawn gets a bionic arm, another keeps the wooden peg. One sleeps in a masterwork bed, another shares a barracks. Nothing breaks immediately. The numbers are small. A few minus signs easily ignored. But envy stacks. A colonist compares bedrooms. Another notices clothing quality. Jealousy grows not from deprivation but from comparison. Mood penalties accumulate quietly. A pawn isn't unhappy because life is hard. They're unhappy because someone else has it better. Envy reshapes priorities. You give upgrades to your best fighters first. Your best crafter gets the private room. Your leader gets the best armor. Everyone else notices. Social fights become more frequent. Insults turn into punches. Minor injuries pile up and keep people out of work. Relationships suffer. Couples argue over status. And envy affects decision-making. You delay helping one pawn because another is more important. You justify inequality because it's efficient. You assume lower-skilled colonists don't mind until they do. Then the colony destabilizes from the inside. A mental break happens during a raid. A jealous pawn starts a fight at the worst moment. Someone snaps, not because they're starving, but because they've been overlooked for too long. The moment colonists can see the difference between us and them, the colony stops being a team. And Rimworld is brutal to colonies that stop acting like one. Lust in Rimworld isn't romantic in a storybook sense. It's coded into relationships, social tension, and ideology conflicts. A pawn falls in love. Another notices. Someone's ideology forbids the relationship. Suddenly, social links start bending in ways the colony never planned. Romantic attachments influence everything. A breakup isn't a private matter. It causes mood penalties, social fights, and mental breaks. Affairs create jealousy. Pawns ignore work to spend time with their partners. Sleep schedules get disrupted. Even the best planned colonies can end up managing relationships instead of resources, and most of the time, you can't directly control it. Then there's the domino effect. The storyteller doesn't punish you with direct force, but with timing. One mismanaged romance lines up with a mechanoid raid or toxic fallout, and suddenly small problems turn into a disaster. Your colony doesn't always fall because of hunger or bullets. Sometimes it falls because of emotional chaos, broken relationships, and invisible tension between pawns who want different things. But lust isn't only destructive. Strong relationships can stabilize moods. Lovers support each other, recover faster, and resist mental breaks better. A healthy couple can carry morale through hard times. In the end, lust doesn't just shape hearts, it shapes the fate of your entire colony. Sometimes it tears everything apart. Sometimes it holds things together. And this is the end of today's video. Thank you for watching. Good night.